the station where our veterans' voices are heard, MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to Hot Takes with me, hosted by the Murph Man, where life gets real and the mic stays hot. That's right, your favorite experience can, yeah. That smart and funny guy. From classroom chalk to comedy clubs, Murph Man breaks it down with brainy thuds. Parenting stress or college mess, he's been through it all, no need to guess. Insights are sharp and data's tight. Rants all ready and the jokes are light. Hot takes, real talk, keeping it true. From high school halls to podcast queues, laugh a little, learn a lot. Turn it up, this show is hot. Honest, funny, maybe loud. Never scared to stand out proud. When life gets real, the mic stays warm. Hosted by the dad with lots of charm. Insights are sharp and data's tight. The lens already and the jokes are light. Hot takes, real talk, keeping it true. From high school halls to podcast queues, live a little, learn a lot. Turn it up, this show is hot. Grab your coffee and let's get into it. No filter, no fluff, just real talk. Let's do it. Ready or not, here we go. It's time for Murphland to start the show.
In a world drowning in data and dread, two men rise, not as saviors or scholars, but as the Murph Man and Connor. Witness their journey as they navigate the treacherous waters of, well, whatever they feel like talking about. Prepare for Hot Takes with the Murph Man, where opinions are strong, facts are optional, and personal experiences are the name of the game. They're not experts, but they play them on this show. Their passion isn't a performance, it's who they are. And sometimes that authenticity means a little adult language might slip out. They apologize for that ahead of time, promising to keep it minimal, but their reactions are always genuine. Now grab your coffee, sit back, and enjoy the show. Here are the Murph Man and Connor.
Welcome. Oh.
You good?
No, you can't hear my voice. Let me see. Is that better or no?
There. Yes, that's better. That's better.
All right, that should be good there. What do you think? There it is. Jesus. Again, microphone problems as we talk. How is everybody doing? How you doing, Connor?
I'm doing okay. Just a little sick right now, so I couldn't be there
Connor's
today.
not able to make the podcast today, unfortunately. You know, but he is here with us in spirit and in online. Right, Connor?
Yep. Yeah. That's funny.
One thing I like to do is go around the world and see what is going on. And right now, what do you think is the most important thing that's going on in this world?
Charlie Kirk, for sure. His death has hit a lot of Americans all over the world.
On both sides of the aisle. Everyone's arguing. We're not going to get into that. We're not a political show here. But we do want to acknowledge, we did lose someone. And it's unfortunate, things like this are happening around the world, and I hope it doesn't happen again. We don't need this kind of behavior from anybody. And I'm sorry that you had to have your first. I was asking you today, was this your first celebrity death that you knew of? And you said, no, I've had others.
Well,
who were they?
but this
It was
is
Juice
like
WRLD
my
and
first
who else?
one.
This is
Juice
your first
WRLD,
assassination, right?
Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth. That's another celebrity that passed. I mean, we've had a lot of celebrities, but I mean, like really, really big ones.
Big ones?
Yeah, big ones.
God, I can't think of any right now.
You can't think of anyone right now?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy. There we go. So yeah, there's been a few here and there, and it's unfortunate this was an assassination, but it's not something that we look forward, to happening again. And I do hope that we're able to get past this and move on,
Yeah.
Well, you ready to get the show started?
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Welcome to Hot Takes with the Murph Man. Today is our 6th episode, and the topic is high school classes in middle school, getting a strategic head start. Today's episode is a hot take for ambitious students. Is taking high school classes in middle school a good idea? Middle school might seem early to think about high school credits, but for academically ready students, it can be a launchpad. This episode explores how early acceleration can open doors later, if done thoughtfully. It's time to ignite the fuse.
That's right. It's time to ignite the fuse, everyone. On today's show, we're going to be talking about, should you take classes in middle school that count for high school credit? That's going to be today's question that we're going to be answering. But before we do that, we want to get to the burning question.
Today's question is related to our main topic of taking high school classes in middle school. Here it is. What is the most important factor to consider when deciding if a middle schooler should take a high school level class like Algebra 1? Is it A, the prestige of being in an advanced class? Maybe it's B, the student's grades in that subject? Or C, the student's overall academic readiness, including maturity and time management skills? Go ahead and take some time to think about that.
It's one of those things that you got to ask. When you are in middle school, are you really thinking about high school? Not really, right? But let's see. What do you think the answer is, Connor? A, the prestige of being in advanced classes. B, the student's grades in that subject. Or C, the student's overall academic readiness, including maturity and time management skills.
C, the student's overall academic readiness, including maturity and time. Yeah.
Very good. It's really interesting because as a middle schooler, you're not really mature yet, right? They expect you to be certain maturity levels as you get to certain levels in high school and whatnot. And it's really interesting because when you talk to a middle schooler about high school, they're like, what? What are you talking about? I got to pick my classes? You don't tell me what I have to take? Right. And I guess they do some of that in elementary to middle school. Right. But in high school, you pick your schedule. You pick the 8 classes you want for the most part. In middle school, you're like, why should I take high school classes? I'm in middle school. That's one of those things that as you progress throughout the day, throughout the years, you ask yourself, should I take these classes now? How is this going to benefit me in the future? What's it going to allow me to do? And all those questions will be answered in today's show. You know that, Connor? Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would say, yes, I agree with the answer that you have to get the maturity in order to take another level of another grade level of advanced courses that you're already taking. I don't really Can't really think right now.
All right, well, you're not really feeling good, but let's talk about, this and a lot more. We're at the core of the episode is today's hot take. Sorry about that. Allowing a ready student to take high school classes in middle school. That's something we call the strategic launchpad, where you start early and you push them forward, but pushing a student who's not ready can do more harm than good. Connor, you were one of those that I sort of forced to do things ahead of time. You know that. Okay. Would you really say I forced you or strongly encouraged you?
Not forced. I wouldn't take it that far, but you did encourage me to take advanced courses like that so I could get ahead in high school.
Right. Now, let's remember what happened in middle school that became an issue for you. Well, not really just for you, but for the whole world, really.
In seventh grade, going into spring break for 8th grade, we had COVID hit us, and it ruined like my 8th grade year for middle school.
Well, okay. Do you remember what class you took in 7th grade?
What, like, out of all my classes?
Yeah, you took 5 classes that were high school credits. You took algebra in 8th grade.
Yes.
You took Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 in 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
Right? Then you had principles of marketing and business and keyboarding and raise up the bar.
I don't think those last 3 were high school credits.
They were. And you took all of those in middle school. Now, the problem was you took Spanish 1 and you finished 3/4 of the year. Then for spring break hit and never did. Then the 8th grade year, when you had part 2, you were learning through asynchronous learning, through online learning. That really didn't work out well for a lot of people. So that was really hard for you to learn a language, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Do you remember what else you
I
had
was-
in the 9th grade that you had difficulty with?
Science, because our teacher got like fired or she quit, and we didn't have a teacher the whole year during 7th grade. So we had like a UPS man.
That's right. For science, that happened. That happened for
Yeah.
science. But you also had the same thing with orchestra in 8th grade. Or was it 7th grade? 7th grade. Yeah. So his teacher just got COVID or whatever and was like, I'm done teaching. I'm not going to do this. And nobody wanted to get hired. Like, during COVID, everyone was taking all the free money and everything. So Connor's teachers had to be substitutes. And, so you didn't learn anything in science. You didn't really learn your second year of Spanish. And your teacher was amazing. I loved her. You jumped out of orchestra because your teacher was gone. They didn't have one. You took algebra, which was also very hard to do because you were at home learning on your own. Right?
For what class?
For algebra.
Yeah.
So you did all of that, and that was hard to learn, right? So all your basic high school classes you take as a freshman year, which is biology you took in your freshman year, but the science you needed to get into biology, you didn't get. The Spanish 2, you didn't really understand it too much. You didn't really study, so you never went on to Spanish 3. Algebra 1, guess what you took in your freshman year? Algebra 2. That was a struggle for you, and you did pretty good on that one.
I took geometry my freshman year. Then I did algebra 2 and sophomore year.
My bad. Yeah, you're right. So you took all those classes in middle school. As a high schooler, there was one thing I kept telling you: don't forget, this is actually part of high school. This is going to go into your GPA. For a 7th grader, do you think a 7th grader understands what GPA is?
No.
I don't either. But before we get into a few more things here, let's go over some of the terms here in our laying down the coals section.
Before we dig in, let's clarify some of the key terms we'll be using today while laying down the coals. Acceleration. This just means taking advanced coursework earlier than is typical, like Spanish 1 in 8th grade. High school credit. This is when a course taken in middle school actually counts toward high school graduation. Academic readiness. As we discussed, it's the full package: intellectual ability, maturity, and organizational skills.
And definitely, those are the three terms that we need to discuss today, because the acceleration is what you did. You got accelerated in your high school credits, 5.5 credits extra, which I thought was amazing. You know, you would have been more prepared for high school if COVID hadn't hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've been a lot more prepared if COVID had not hit. So, for a year, almost a year and a half, you weren't in school, and then you went as a freshman, you went in and had to start learning school again, how to do school. There's a whole cohort of, do you remember what a cohort is?
No.
It's a group of people you enter school with. Like right now, you entered college as computer engineering. You have a cohort of students that are going to be with you the rest of the 4 years, taking a lot of the similar classes as you. So you're going to be together and all of that. And I've talked about this like in 8th grade, in freshman year for high school. We talked about this last week where MacArthur and Ross came together, right? You're making new friends. But now, not only do you have to do with the social stuff of going from different schools and to a new school, you had to get new friends because half of those friends are from different schools. You did not have any social skills because for a year and a half, you were locked in the house, okay? Along you and every other kid your age. That was hard. That was really hard for you to have to overcome. And little by little you did. It wasn't easy, but you did. And one of the things that I talked about previously was the social skills. Social skills are so important for the kids today, okay? Everyone's on their phone doing the little TikTok stuff and Instagram, and no one socializes anymore. If I ask you, when was the last time you talked to your friends? Your answer is going to be, well, I texted them the other day, right? Do you guys still talk on the phone?
Like on a phone call? Yeah.
On a phone call. You know how that works, right?
The what?
You know how a phone call works, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that when you think about your phone calls, okay, social skills calling nowadays, no one listens to it, okay? The other day, a perfect example, I'm going to call you out on this one, Connor. I went to a bazaar with a friend of mine, and Connor was our ride home. You remember that, Connor?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So I called him about 4 times, I would say, in about 15, 20 minutes. He doesn't answer. I said, he probably fell asleep. Took an Uber home. I get home and Connor's in his room playing video games. And what did you tell me?
I was on the phone with friends.
You were on the phone with friends. What were you doing on the phone?
Talking,
how were you
playing
talking?
games.
Yeah, but how were you talking to your friends?
Through phone call?
Through an actual phone call?
Yeah.
Or through like Facebook or Instagram or one of those family chats?
An actual phone call.
Okay. But you didn't get my phone call. And later on, he shows me his phone. He had, I think it was 4 other missed calls besides mine.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Today's youth, they don't answer phone calls. You just don't. It's not part of what you guys do.
I was on the other phone call. Every other call that tries to call during if I'm on a call right now and then someone tries to call me, it won't show up.
I disagree. I disagree 100% on that. And I'll prove it to you later when I see you. Everyone here watching knows that we will have people that call us, and it beeps on our phone. We get a beep that says, "Hey, this is something that
Yeah, but it doesn't do like a ringtone or vibration or anything. And I was on the game, so I wasn't looking at my phone.
So you were actually playing a game, or were you playing a game and
Yes.
just listening on your phone?
I was. Huh?
Were
That's
you
the
playing a
same
game
thing.
on an
That's still
Xbox?
playing the game and talking to friends.
Okay, no,
Yes,
but
I
were
was
you
playing
playing
on
a
the
game on
Xbox.
Xbox? But you were talking on the phone, so you didn't have your phone in your hand or anything.
No,
You probably couldn't hear when it beeped at you.
it
That's
didn't
what probably
beep.
happened. Anyway, we're not going to beat a dead horse. But the point I was making is, kids today don't know how to use a phone. And that social skills is so important. Picking up a phone call, interacting with another human in real life, IRL, like you guys say, right? And speaking of real life, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about Liam, a 7th grader, and the problems he had going to school. So we'll be right back.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
Another regular day, nobody knows. It's that time, he's coming home to them from a foreign land. He pulls up, his mama cries, looks at daddy with tears in his eyes and says, nothing feels better than this. Couple of months go by and no one sees. Something just ain't right, only wants his peace. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free and put his mind at ease. We will help, 'cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again. He gets help, but he still feels off. Sees an ad on the TV about a dog batting said, this is a man's best friend. Whoa, so he goes one day and he picks it up. Never thought a dog could bring so much love and put a smile on his face. But he's finally found a saving grace. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free. Put his mind at ease. We will help, 'cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again. Whoa, whoa. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free. Put his mind at ease. We will help cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month for veterans, and you guys, you're not alone. There is help. Dial 988, then press 1. Someone will be there to talk to you. 24/7, 365. You're not alone. You can always get the help you need. And don't forget that. I know trying to get help can be difficult, but that's the first step. Just call someone. All right. And speaking of real life, let's get to the story from the fire.
Our story from the fire today is about Liam, a 7th grader, is offered Algebra 1. He's fantastic at math, but he struggles with organization. His parents talk with his teacher, and together they decide to wait a year. The next year, as an 8th grader, he's more mature, and he absolutely thrives in the class. They played the long game.
They played the long game. That is so important, you guys. He's great at math and he's organized. His parents talk to the teacher, and the teacher and the parents decide that next year he should try to get into something. With Connor, I talked to the counselors and the teachers, and I said, do you think he's ready for this? And they said, yeah, we think he's ready. Like I always said, Connor doesn't have the best study skills. I never pushed that on him or anything, but he had the knowledge that he needed to be able to do that. And that's one of those things that when we talk about it, he doesn't really see it as much as other people do. But trust me, we planned ahead, and he always jokes about how I planned his whole high school career since the 5th grade. That's true. I'm not going to lie. It is, but it afforded him a lot of opportunities in high school that normal kids who did not, and I say normal meaning ones who not taking the advanced classes, none who took middle school, high school classes, none who took dual credit. That's what I mean by normal. The average high school student, they take these courses, right? And they graduate in 4 years, and they're done. And like I told Connor, I'm not celebrating his graduation because that was something that I expected him to do. I expected him to have a graduating high school diploma. That's an expectation. Did I tell him he had to do certain things? Yeah, I did. But when he got to his junior year, he was able to take 2 tech courses if he chose to, or he was able to take all these other bogus classes. And like we talked about before, bogus classes isn't necessarily just stupid classes or BS classes. They're classes that we learn something, but they're not as hard as regular coursework, such as culinary arts. I would rather take culinary arts than anatomy and physiology, for example. Connor took both, but it's one of those things that he was able to do that. So I know you got to know your child, whether they believe in themselves or not. Your child will decide if they're ready to take these courses, if they're ready to do more, if they're ready to take on challenges. One of the things I like a lot is the story of Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. Your cheese moves. meaning change happens. Something happens to your life and you have to move with it. You have to adjust to it. Question is, how do you do that? And that's one of the things that you have to learn as an adult. How do you adjust to these changes? And when your cheese moves, you got to move with it. And I never, ever let Connor just sit back and take his classes and just do the bare minimum. He thinks he did the bare minimum. I disagree. I don't know if Connor's listening right now, but are you there, Connor?
I am. Yeah.
Do you think you did the bare minimum, or do you think you did more than the bare minimum now that we've been talking?
Now that I'm thinking about it, I did a little bit more, but yet I still even though I took advanced courses and all that, I still did the bare minimum to pass. If that makes sense.
Yes, but compared to other high school students who just, like I said, the average high school student, you did a lot more than the average high school student. Okay, average high school student average high school student goes to school for 4 years, right? In those 4 years, they take all their classes and they graduate in 4 years. That's all that's expected of you. That's the minimum. You played sports, you did a tech program, advanced class that you could, and you volunteered your senior year over 300 hours. That is more than the minimum. And like I said, I did not put you in these classes because I was being mean or anything. I really thought you could pass them, which you did. You passed every class you needed to take. You know what I mean? Yeah. You never sat there and asked, I can't do this, or you just did it because you can. So most important thing, the tip out there for parents is know what your kids can and cannot do. If they're able to do something, have them do it. Challenge them. Make them take that step to do something different. Because in the long run, the long game, that's that strategic planning that we were talking about. If you can think ahead a little bit, do it. And one thing that with Connor, I sat there and we talked about his college classes and what he should take and what he should not take. And looking at his degree plan, it said pre-cal if needed. Well, he took pre-cal in high school, wasn't AP or dual credit. He's like, no, I don't need it. I'll start off with calculus. Well, when we went to go register, they said, no, you need to start with pre-cal. And that threw off the whole quote unquote plan, the schedule that we had. And it's funny because he was able to take this and, find a way around his schedule because he had prepared his schedule. He was able to decide, this is what we've done, this is what we want to do, this is where we're going, that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting because he's able to change if needed, but the plan, we had an idea. And one thing in the Army, they say, best laid plans, you plan for every scenario that you can, but you plan for every scenario that you can, but it doesn't survive the first contact with the enemy. Steven Seagal says, you can have all the training in the world, but everything changes with that first punch, and that's so true. Connor can have the best laid plan, but he goes to college and he has to do it. He goes to high school, he had to do it. You have to adjust, but having a plan does help. And speaking of plans, let's talk about what the heat map has to offer us today.
Here is the heat map, which gives you some actionable steps you can take immediately. Talk to the professionals, the teachers and counselors. Think long term. Will taking this class early free up time for advanced AP courses or cool electives later in high school? Monitor your child's stress levels. Just because a student can do something doesn't always mean they should.
Just because a student can do something doesn't mean they should. That is so true. That is so true. Just because you think they can do it. Do you want to give them more stress? And that's the second point they make here. Monitor your child's stress levels. One thing I always do with my kid is I ask them, how are things going? You doing okay? Normally kids don't talk to us. I get that. All right. I get the fact that they don't talk to us. But asking them, checking in on them. The most important thing is that they know they can reach out to you if they need to. That's probably the most important thing that anyone can ask. is to be there for your kids when they need you. And hopefully Connor knows he can be, I'll be there for him, as well as any of my nieces or anyone else that knows me knows in a crisis, I'll do my best to help you, you know. But it's always important to check in on your kids and ask, how are you doing? You know, every semester every year when you go up to the courses, you want to say, hey, is this something you want to do? Or is this something you prefer not to do? And as you go and you progress and everything, you'll see that, you know, a lot of times they do take on challenges and they do succeed and they do well. So remember, talk to your counselors at school, you guys. Your teachers and counselors are the best resource ever. Connor can tell you. Connor, do you want to tell a joke?
What joke?
Counselor? In our first meeting at Burgess?
No, you can tell it.
Right. We're talking to the counselor, and I go in there. I introduce myself to her, and you know, my kid, and she says, "Are we waiting on his mom?" And Connor says, "If my mom's coming, I'm getting the hell out of here." It's because, you know, she passed away 5 years before that. And the counselor did not know how to react to that. She's like, "Oh my God!" Like she didn't know to laugh or to cry or to be serious. She was like, "What?" And I said, "Don't worry, you know, just his mom's not coming, obviously, right?" And we told her why and whatnot. But as the years progressed, every time she saw me, she was happy to see me, but she knew she was going to have to work because I spent time talking to them about what my son needed and based on what they recommended. And Connor would make his decisions. You know, so talking to the counselors, getting to know your teachers, the counselors are very important. Connor hated the fact that I go to parent-teacher conferences, didn't you, Connor?
I hated it so much.
Every kid hates it. You're not alone. But the fact that you go to the teachers and you talk to them, the teachers know that you care about that student. And the teachers know you can reach out to you and they can call you if there's any issues, any concerns or anything. And when you email those teachers, they know you're involved and they know you're going to do your part as a parent. So they have to do their part as a teacher. And, you know, the kids don't always do their part, right? Kids wait till the last minute to turn in homework. I teach at community college, and I used to give the last week of school as a makeup week. And I tell everybody, you have a chance to turn in an assignment today or this week for so much credit. And everyone took advantage of that. And most kids passed. And, you know, I decided after a while, although I've been preaching, let's be responsible, I'm not doing that anymore. You know, you turn it in late, you don't get the credit. It's that simple, you know. And it's not always fair to the kids because stuff does happen. But again, we talk about the fact that how accessible are you to your kids? As a teacher, they have my cell number. They can text me. And, you know, I tell them, don't text me after 9 o'clock. And every now and then I get a student texting me at 11 or 12, 2 in the morning. You know, and I write them a really nasty message like, you know, that's not appropriate. Talk to me later, email me, whatever you got to do. But don't text me ever again. You know, not in those words, but pretty much. For your parents and kids, they have to know how to get a hold of you. They have to know how to talk to you. I know you live with them. That doesn't mean anything. When you sit down and you ask the kids, how can I help you? Are you prepared to take that answer on? Are you prepared for whatever conversation comes up after that question? Are you prepared to help them out with whatever you can? Because when you're helping your kid, it's very important to be there. And whenever you have a conversation, do it. Now, one thing that I like to do, I like to go for drives. We go out to eat, we go to drive, whatever the case may be. But one thing that I've learned as a counselor, and I want you to think about this, when you're fighting with someone and you're face to face, you see their body language, you see their facial features, you see their hands, you see them clenched, or, you know, you see everything. That's called nonverbal feedback. We get that, and as we're talking to someone, we get that feedback, right? So ask yourself this. If you could talk to someone over the phone, that'd be better than talking face to face sometimes, right? Because you don't have to see each other. But what's the thing about the phone? They can hang up anytime they want, right? And notice I said hang up, like fold your phone, right? As my favorite tactic ever to get to know someone when I'm first talking to them, when I'm meeting them, when I go out with my kids, my nieces, one of my favorite things to do is go for the drive. And the thing is, when you're sitting side by side, the only nonverbal you really have is their tone of voice. And sometimes people don't realize what their tone of voice says to you. You know, and that's where you got to learn, okay, this is not what I want, this is what I want, whatever the case may be. So as you're talking, you don't see those nonverbal rolling of the eyes. You do hear the sighs, you know, but you don't see the rolling of the eyes. And sometimes not having to face the person, but being able to talk in close proximity. And if you need to pull over and stop and talk about something a little more serious, you can. You know, that's so important, because being able to stop and talk to your kids. Whenever you ask your kids, everything okay? Be prepared for it not to be okay, and be prepared to talk about that. You know, how many times have you been at work and you go, hey, how's it going? You know, good. You? Good. All right. Has anyone go, oh man, today sucks? What do? Oh, sucks for you. Got to go to work, man. Talk to you later. Or do you sit there and talk to the person about what's going on? You know, whenever you ask that question, understand that you have to have the time to talk to them. You have to have the time to talk to them. And if you don't, that's not going to go well. When we come back, we're going to talk about the places you're going to get burned. Stay tuned.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
Wonder what was going on inside the man in black's mind. Was he missing June? Was he thinking back when that picture was snapped? Was he wishing he could hold her? Did he know his life was over? The day that camera flashed the last picture of Johnny Cash. There on his face, show hard living and show grace, a story told in shades of black. Was he whispering a prayer through that cold and lonesome glare? The day the camera flashed the last picture of Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash. The lines alive there on his face, show hard living and show grace, a story told in shades of black. Was he whispering a prayer through that cold and lonesome glare? The day the camera flashed the last picture of Johnny Cash. Wonder what was going on inside the man in black's mind. The day old Marty flashed the last picture of Johnny Cash.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Here are a few pitfalls to avoid.
Don't push for acceleration just for the prestige or bragging rights. Focus on what is the right fit for your child. Don't ignore their emotional maturity. You have to consider the whole child. And don't assume that an early success guarantees it will be easy later. Keep checking in.
Very true, very true. Don't push just because you don't want to be able to brag and say, hey, I'm in this program or this or this. Connor can tell you one of the things that he did a lot was talk to students from the early college high school. And a lot of times they said, hey, I'm in the early college high school. Right, Connor? They would do that to you?
Yeah. Almost all my friends were in early college.
And was that was that them just bragging about it and showing off?
Not showing off. They were just mentioning that they were in early college.
All right. And with you, I brag about you all the time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, do you think I things I asked you to do for my own bragging, or was it in your best interest? What do you think your opinion on that was?
You went a little too far, like mentioning everything I did to almost all your friends.
Everything you did. Yes. Everything you did.
Yeah.
Remember that. No matter what I might have said, what I pushed you for or anything, I was always talking about you. I never said, I am such a good parent because.
I know, but a little too much for me.
Too much bragging on you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud of you. What can I say?
Well, yeah.
I'm proud of it. Yeah, see, some people can't take compliments. It's okay. It's all right. We also talked about don't ignore their emotional maturity. You have to consider the whole child. One of the things that I always am asking Connor is, am I doing okay as a parent? I'm not the best parent out there, and I know that no one is the best parent, but there are some that are worse than others. My own personal mom, she wasn't very close to me. She was very close to my brothers, and she shunned a lot, and I never got anything from her. And before she died, we had a long conversation, probably about 4 hours. We had a very long conversation, and one thing that she said, she never said sorry, okay? But one thing she said to me was, I did the best I could with what I had. And when I look back on it, she had a lot going on. And, I didn't excuse it, but I understood it now as an adult. That's what I'm always asking Connor. Can I do better? What do you need me to do? What do you need from me? And, he'll tell me, back off or stop this, stop that, stop talking about me, right? He'll tell me, you're doing good, And if he needs something, he can ask me. The question is, will he ever ask me? Probably not, but he knows he can. That's more important than anything, is he knows he can ask me. And the final part of that statement we talked about on the things you could learn, little mistakes or common things that happen, is don't assume that early success guarantees you'll be good later. Just because he did this at the beginning does not mean he have to do it throughout the whole thing. Hey, Connor, if you're there, do you think that if you would have taken early college, high school classes, you would have been in a better position right now? Or are you glad you didn't?
Well, I'm glad I didn't do early college because I know I wouldn't be as academic as everybody else. So I would have more stress if I did early college. But I'm glad with what I did my high school year.
No, you should be.
Yeah, I'm glad of that I graduated and I'm in this position, I guess.
Well, you should be. You accomplished a lot, And one of the things that I've always said about early college, high school, and I'll repeat it till the day I die, is I don't always agree that students should get early college, high school if they're not mature enough. a lot of early college, high school programs for me have to do with helping lower income, disadvantaged kids get a college degree because it's free and it's taken at the same time as high school. Yeah, you do have those that excel and they want to get into early college so they can graduate early. Okay, there's those few. Okay, but the majority are just trying to get ahead in life. And by taking a few courses here and there, they get it. Some do get a whole associate's degree. My niece Danica, she was here a couple episodes ago. She definitely was mature enough to take those early college, high school. And now she's a she's a senior at 19 years old or 20. Is she 20, Connor?
She's 19.
19. Yeah. At 19, she's a senior. And I would not say that the majority of kids can do that successfully. Yeah, people might start early college, get their associate's degree, go to college, but to finish it, I don't think a lot of people do that. So, and another thing that people don't like me to talk about, but this is very true. A lot of people don't, they think they have to get an associate's degree to go get a bachelor's degree. And you actually have to go into your program degree plan at the 4-year college and ask, what are the requirements I need for this? For example, you might need psychology, right? You might need psychology. So if you take psychology as dual credit, or you take it in your first 2 years of junior college or whatever the case may be in early college, you might actually get that for your bachelor's degree. And if you meet all the requirements, taking all the basic math, science, social studies, and English courses you need to get into that master's or that bachelor's program, you don't have to waste time getting your associates. Get going with your bachelor's degree and save yourself a semester or two of college. Time and money is a lot to consider there. But also at the same time, if you're not that great of a student, go to a junior college, go to your community college, take the courses you need for that bachelor's level program that you need. Not so much get the associate's degree, but take everything you can at the community college level before going up. Now with Connor taking computer science at UTEP, I told him, I said, being an engineer is a specialized program. You could take your basics at community college, but I said, you need to get those 40 years at the college. You need to get to know those teachers. You need to get to know those students. All of that's networking. And you also understand the subjects better by the same teachers that are teaching you throughout the 40 years, because rarely do they change, so going back and forth, it's one of those things that you have to consider. Another thing you have to consider when you're talking about early college and stuff like that is Connor had a friend who said she was going to do early college, graduate with an associate's degree, then go to a local college for 1 year, and then go to another college for a final year. And I advised her against that. I said, why would you do that? Well, she says, I want to graduate from that college. I said, then go to that college. Don't waste the time here. And it's not a waste, but I mean, by the time you get adjusted to the campus, adjusted to your friends, adjusted to your teachers, you're changing campuses and moving out of town. Do you need all that stress? And who knows, 2 years from now, let's see where she decides. But, there's some things you have to do, the planning, the strategic planning we talked about up ahead, right? You have to plan for all of that. And it's very important. Excuse me. It's very important to plan. And, just because you can do it early does not mean you're going to be able to do it later in life. So keep that in mind as we talk about the afterburn.
Here are some questions for reflection.
What are my child's biggest strengths and biggest stressors right now? Are we, as a family, choosing this path for the right reasons? Here are some questions for: how can we support their balance and well-being through this process?
That is so true. That is so true. Going back to the slide here, what's your child's biggest strengths and stressors? Sometimes the kids don't talk to you, so it's hard to know. And that's why it's so important to know what's going on with your kids, know their friends, know what their habits are, know their patterns, so that you're able to do certain things with them. But not only that, but it also helps you understand when they're struggling, how to help them. All right. You also want to talk about, as a family, what's best here. Now, one thing that Connor can tell you, if he's still listening, I don't know if he's still here or not, but whenever he tried something new, the first thing that was asked was, am I going to be able to support this? Am I going to do it financially? Am I able to do it like with the rides? Whatever the case may be, right? I had to ask, how is this affecting me? You know, him being in football, yeah, he was in football, but then I had to go back and pick him up at 10 o'clock at night after the games were over, you know. So I had to put my Friday nights on hold for him, and I had no problem with that. You know, once he started driving, he drove himself, so it wasn't an issue. You know, also you want to ask, how can we support their balance and well-being through the process? Taking classes early or on time is stressful. Early is just much more stressful because you're doing more than what's expected of you. And sometimes your friends don't understand that you got to go home and do homework. Sometimes your friends don't understand why you're in that class. You should be with us. Take the class with us. How many times did people tell Connor that? Hey, take this class with me. And Connor would say, no, I have to take this other class because that doesn't apply to my plan. Did that ever happen, Connor?
Not really.
Good. Good.
I mean, we all took the same classes no matter what. And since I was like kind of ahead, but yeah, at the same time, they were in early college, we didn't really have that issue that much in order to be like, oh, let's take this class, because technically we really couldn't, because we were both in like different grade levels, technically.
Right.
Makes sense.
You know, luckily when I was a senior, I was taking freshman science because I failed it. So I got to meet kids from all grades, you know. I was a really horrible high school student. But yeah, you know, different grade levels obviously take different level classes. Rarely do you guys take the same one if you're in different grades, you know. But I think, you know, you did really well. And part of the reason you did so well is because you made friends with those people that mattered. Okay, they weren't just losers. I hung around with losers. All right. Not everyone was a loser, but most of my friends were losers. You hung out with friends who were successful, who had good stuff going on. You know, you have one friend that's a photographer and a mechanic, and he does amazing work, you know. He's 19, 18, 19, and he's going to have a career in photography or mechanics, whatever one he chooses. You know, it's very important there. But at the same time, you also made better decisions as you got older. You know, you protected yourself from bad decisions. And so let's talk about those heat shields now.
Here are your heat shields that will keep you from getting burned. You can use Khan Academy to preview course material to see if it's a good fit. And look for middle to high school transition checklists online to help you plan. www.iformingfamilies.org.
Sorry, that's a typo. It's informingfamilies.org. It's actually a program for Washington, but it has a lot of good resources for you. And if you go to check us out at purehottakes.com, you're going to be able to check out all the resources we have there. It's every day the website's growing, so you can always check out that information. But let's talk about some of those heat shields that we just discussed. Using Khan Academy, that's the program online where the kids can go and review themselves. And if Connor, you've used Khan Academy, haven't you?
Like one time, but not like the whole course.
Okay, I thought you used a lot more than that, but what do you remember what you did at Khan Academy? I'm just curious if you remember.
If I did Khan Academy?
No, what did you do when you went there?
It was for pre-cal, and we mostly just did it on paper, but I went onto the course like on Khan Academy because he had a link to the book, and I took some notes from there because sometimes I wouldn't understand what he would say.
And that's exactly the point. Khan Academy can be used to enhance anything taught in school. It will help every student in every class. if the student goes to it. You know, also they talk about a middle and high school transition checklist. Connor's counselors got together with him one time and they said, okay, we need to make sure you're doing everything you had to do. Are you doing this, this, and this? And Connor's like, yes, 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 I'm already doing all that. And there's one thing that they asked Connor that we did not have on our checklist. Do you remember what that was, Connor? That he came to me and go, we need to do this, or I can't apply, or I can't go to this college, or I can't do this or that.
No.
It had to do with the meningitis shots.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So the nurse comes to Connor and says, you're going to need a meningitis shot for college. I said, all right. So we went to his doctor and we got a meningitis shot. Then I sent it in and they came back and they said, no, you need a different one. That's not the one we needed. I'm like, there's more than one kind of meningitis shots. And he's like, yeah, there's like A, B, C, whatever the letters were. And I'm like, okay, so where do I go for that? Walgreens and CVS. So then the next day I had to take Connor to the Walgreens to get a second shot. I still laugh at that. It wasn't my arm that was getting poked, right? But, you know, getting those vaccines, he needed that for the college. And there's an actual checklist that says, get your meningitis shot. You know, it doesn't say meningitis is B or C or A or whatever. It just says meningitis. So ask your school which one they need to make sure you have the right one. Okay. Another thing is the freshman crud. You know what that is, Connor?
I've never heard of the freshman crud.
You never heard of the freshman crud?
Nope.
Kids go to college, right? And now you're getting kids. Remember we talked about middle school, you go to high school and you get kids from different schools. Now you go to college and you have kids from all over the world. And they bring germs that are not local to the location you're from. And a lot of freshmen get sick with stuff. That's why they call it the freshman crud, because they go and they get sick because there's bacteria that have and illnesses that they never had in their hometown, and they bring it here to wherever you are, and you get sick. So I always tell Connor, make sure you wash your hands and, you know, sanitize and all that stuff. And one of the big things in El Paso right now is hand, foot, and mouth disease. That's a really big thing. And I'll tell you right now, to get that, it's horrible. Hand, foot, and mouth disease is horrible. It literally gives you sores in your mouth, in your throat, in your hands, on your feet. It's literally hand, foot, and mouth, but it's sores. And you can't even walk. You can't grab things. It's not a good disease, you know. So now that you've heard me say the freshman crud, Connor, have you gotten sick or anything?
Not from school. Like,
not
from say school? UTEP's clean. I wouldn't say I got sick from college. I just got like, food poisoning probably.
But this morning you're not here because you're sick. And you're asking yourself, where did I get it from?
Food poisoning.
I ate the same thing you did. It's not food poisoning. It has to be from the
same thing, but
same meat, same everything. Okay, you had a single, I had a double, same thing.
You could cook it differently.
I think you got a bug from school, and it's finally hitting you, is what it is. You know, and that's just part of what happens being a freshman. You know,
3 weeks.
No. It's new there, and it takes a while to get it passed around between the kids and everything. You know, so think about those things that you can do to protect yourself from stuff. Sanitize your hands and everything. That's all we talk about. Physical, mentally, talk to people, have support, have friends. But academically, get the help out there. Go online and type, how do I get help for pre-cal? Go to Khan Academy. Go to myinformedfamilies.org. You know, there's a lot of places you can go to get information. All right. Now it's time for today's final burn.
The final take from today's discussion is, early acceleration is a tool, not a trophy. Use it wisely, not wildly.
We're not done yet. Stay tuned for the Campus Heat, where we ask college students what makes them sweat.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
Down Lincoln again, droplets form against the windows, early morning light and shadows bend to colors, reaching for the lenses in my eyes which take them, turn them upside down, and though I do not know quite how, they will be turned right back around and spit back out. Conduits and cabling which disassemble them, processing from noise and light, still frames in static motion and information. Oh, I suddenly see that the reason is everywhere around us, is everywhere around us. Bus stop standing on the corner, passengers are waiting, and I sit in silence, half asleep, and I wonder what they each are thinking. Woman with off-white woolen cap, the young man staring at the sidewalk where the tip of her umbrella touches to the ground. And the distance between strangers can sometimes be quite alarming, but today the bus comes to carry us together into the morning. Oh, I suddenly see that the reason is everywhere around us, is everywhere around us. And I suddenly see that the reason is everywhere around us, is everywhere around us. Walking down Lincoln again, droplets form against the windows, early morning light and shadows bend to colors, reaching for the lenses in our eyes which take them, turn them upside down, and though I do not know quite how, they will be turned right back around, spit back out, conduits and cabling which disassemble them for processing from noise and light, still frames in static motion and information. Oh, I suddenly see that the reason is everywhere around us, is everywhere around us. And I suddenly see that the reason is everywhere around us, is everywhere around us.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
All right. We are back. So normally we do talk with the students, Connor, my nieces. Things happen. Connor's not feeling too good, so he's just going to chill out and take a break right now. Go, rest, whatever he has to do. My nieces aren't able to make it. They got things going on. So let me talk to you about some of this stuff, all right? 3 weeks into college, one of the things that's gotten easier is Connor has learned his schedule. He's learned what he has to do at certain points. He knows what classes to go to. He knows what building to go to. He knows the fastest route. And he's able to go back and forth now. He's not as tired as he was. He hasn't used a minor shuttle At least every time I ask him, he hasn't said he uses it. The schedule of that shuttle doesn't combine with his classes, but he could get there earlier. He says, I'd rather walk. He wants to stay in shape and whatnot. So that's fine. But as Connor is getting used to school, something that's also changed is his curriculum. The classes are getting a little more difficult. He's taking labs now. And when I asked him, what are labs for? He goes, well, labs are where we do the hands-on stuff, like for chemistry, where we actually go and do things hands-on. I said, okay, how does that work for pre-cal? Well, pre-cal, that's actually where we go in and see some different activities that we're doing in class and how they're applied in math. So that's something he does. So he's learning, that all started this week. So he's still learning how that works. But the other thing is my niece, who we've spoken to as well, she is in the folklorico. She got accepted into the folklorico, which I'm real proud of her for that. I was hoping she'd be here today. We could talk about that, but that's why she couldn't be here. She's doing the folklorico dancing. And it's like a club, but she was really good at it here in El Paso, and luckily she's able to continue that over there, and she got accepted to it. I don't know if she had to audition or whatever, but she got accepted. So one of the things I've always said is get involved in clubs around school. And that's so important so that you not only have school and stuff to worry about, but friends. Friends is probably the most important thing that we have to do. And as we do that, it's really difficult, to get through college without having any friends. Because what ends up happening is you get sad when you're away from home. You get lonely, you lost some of your friends from high school. They all graduated. Just the other day, Connor and I were driving through a drive-thru with one of his friends from high school. And he's like, hey, what's up, man? And whatever. He goes, I haven't seen him since graduation. That's the thing. You lose touch with people, and that's a very common thing to happen. You lose touch with people. So making friends, being involved in clubs is very important. Again, kids' maturity level, their social skills. Are they able to handle doing extracurricular activities with the curricular activities you have going on right now in school? So it's one of those things that you really, really have to think about. Now, the other thing that's pretty funny is, excuse me, what that's really hard for kids is, keeping your activities that matter in college. And we're going to be talking about that next week. That's going to be, in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the extracurricular activities you participate in 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to be talking more specifically about dual credit in high school courses, AP and all that stuff, how to get advanced in high school to get college credit. But in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about the extracurricular stuff. And I'm hoping my nieces can join, because one is in student body president, one's in folklorico. I would love to hear their take on that. Let's see if they can make it. Hopefully they can. 2 weeks from now, they should be able to plan it. But again, activities happen. Me doing the podcast on Saturday mornings, I'm not able to go out and do things that I normally would do. I was talking about going to do some health fairs and stuff. I can't do those anymore because I'm working on Saturday mornings. Donating my time. And one thing, speaking of donate, right now, as you can see here, let me put this up here. We have a QR code on the screen right now. mbradio.us is the platform that's hosting this show right now. They have a program where they're helping veterans find a voice. They offer a chance for veterans to come on and create their own podcast. And, we have to buy the equipment, which is sometimes can get pretty expensive. But to go in and teach you how to use Canva, how to use AI, how to use everything that they offer, the Google Workspace, whatever the case is with that. They give you your own website. They give you email address. They give you a lot of things as a veteran to find your voice here. And we are asking for donations for that. The person who runs this, H-Train, he has his own podcast on Thursday mornings. He does it out of the kindness of his heart for the most part. He puts all his extra money into it. I've been helping him do some things that are a lot of fun. And it's one of those things where if you can donate, please do. If you're a veteran who's listening to this and you want to go out and do your own podcast, reach out to him. Reach out to mbradio.us and tell him, hey, I want to do this. When I found them, I was looking for a location on where to do a podcast. And I was going to do it in my local library. And that probably would have worked, but on holidays and stuff, they're closed. So I was looking for a place. I have a friend who helped me out with this location that I'm at right now. And as we progress in this podcast, you know, I was looking for locations and where could I do it, and I came across mbradio.us, and they helped us out a lot in doing this and setting it up. And you know, thanks to them, I'm able to do this podcast, and you're listening to it now. So be aware of that. And if you want to donate, there's a QR code. You're definitely willing. We'd be happy to have. We'd be happy to help us. And if you want to get more information, like I said, you could do that. You could also go to my website at purehottakes.com or mail me at murphman@purehottakes.com, and you'll be able to get that information as well. So you can email me and ask me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Even though I'm not involved with them, I'm getting more involved as the days go on. And part of what I want to do is go to their hometown and work with them for the holidays, maybe for Thanksgiving or Christmas. You know, let's talk about that volunteering real quick. Like I mentioned, I can do certain extracurricular things I used to do because I'm doing this podcast now. But let me ask you, what do you do to volunteer in your community? What do you do to help your community? Are you involved in the political scene? Are you involved in the civic scene? Are you involved in the volunteer programs all around El Paso or around your city where you're at? There are so many opportunities for you to help others. If you need help, one of my favorite numbers out there is 211. 211, you can call them and say, I need to get some information on how to get this help, this assistance, and they can guide you. But at the same time, they can also tell you where to go to get some volunteer work and where to go to get some information. So check out 211. You know, there's a lot, believe it or not, there's a lot of 3-digit codes. You got 988 for the veteran hotline. We talked about that earlier. 211 for information. 311 for non-emergency situations. 811 where you're going to dig. You want to make sure you get in there. And 911 obviously for emergencies. So it's pretty funny how it used to be. 411 used to be the code for information. I don't know if that one still works or not. But, you know, being in college, you're going to get a chance to volunteer. As an adult, hopefully you continue that. And part of, I can tell you right now, being in the clubs and everything, yeah, there's performances you have to do, but a lot of what they do is philanthropy. They go out there, they raise funds for their program, for their schools, for their causes. And my cause right now is MB Radio. This is Military Broadcast Radio is my cause. I'm helping them out with what I can with my skills in animation. I'm making cartoons. I'm making things happen. And I'm hoping that I can continue to do that and make it a bigger thing than what it is right now. You know, one thing that we did do was we created an animation of the logos that we have here. They're called the Beaker and DJ Ducky. They're the mascots for MB Radio. And what's funny is we had a video that we made, and I'm going to see if I can get that for you here real quick. I'll tell you what, let's go to break real quick, and I'll come back and I'll show that to you.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
There's a hotel window, many floors above. What's missing down there is love. Thinking through the smoke that fills my mind, it's not my first time. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. They say it's all inside, heaven and hell. What happened to that angel when he fell? Give it just one try. Tell me you don't like it. Be God for a moment, don't despise it. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Step outside and breathe. Play a little in the street. Hope it's not me they're sending. Move on from over there. Give the kids a little scare. Oh, these fences, they need mending. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
All right, and we're back. So like I was saying, MB Radio, H-Train over at MB Radio, he's helped me out a lot on how to learn how to use Canva and AI. And together we created a video. We're still working on it, but I want to give you guys a little view of it. So tell me what you think. You can email me at murphman@purehottakes.com. that is what I've learned how to do in the last 2 months. That there probably took me about 10, maybe 15 to 18 hours of my time to do that video. And I gave that time up freely to help out my friends at MBR Radio, or MB Radio, sorry. It's one of those things that volunteering is very important. And I hope each and every one of you that's listening does something to help someone else. It doesn't always have to be an agency. It doesn't have to be a program. You can just, even money, everyone says, throw money at a situation. In some cases, that's true. I'll give you an example. Right now, one of the things that we were talking about was COVID, right? And here in El Paso, we had a food bank. And what's funny about that is during COVID, everybody was using the food bank, which would make sense, right? Nobody was working. Everyone had to do that. How much do you think they had to spend on running that program a year? What do you think it is? Any idea? I'm trying to find it right now so I can show you. The 2023 report. Okay, let me get that. They have a report. You can actually go see where your money's going if you want to donate, right? You want to see where your money is going. You want to know where it's going. Look at the reports. And if I were to tell you how much the food bank is right now, I would tell you that a lot of it had to do with donations during COVID. Okay, but just to give you some stats, in 2023, 106.2 million pounds of food was given out, 88.5 million meals to people in need. They have 102 agencies that help them out. All right. And the revenue was, let me see if it gives an actual number. Oh, they don't give numbers on it. Oh, that's unfortunate. But one thing you do want to look at is when money is being given, okay, how much of it is actually going to administrative costs versus the program itself. Here, 0.26% and 0.2% for fundraising. 0.26% is administrative. 99.54% makes it back to the people in forms of food and programs to help the needy. So think about that when you're there and you want to know where to donate. Food banks are a great place to donate money to. Also, your time. If you can go help them sort food, make packs. The way they work is you do a drive-through, you go, or you take a shopping cart in, they give you the food and you take it back out to the cart, and they already had these pre-made boxes. During COVID, when nobody wanted to touch anything, you would have drive-throughs where they drive up, open your trunk, and they would just put the food in there and you close the trunk and you leave, And it was a really, really good program. It still is. I love the food bank. And there's so many different organizations, but today I'm going to talk about the food bank and a few others. But donating to them gives it right back to where you go. MBR Radio, I can tell you right now, if you were to donate to us, everything gets put back into this. Because like I said, all of this is free for us who are the podcasters here. We don't have to pay for anything unless we choose to. Everything is given to us. The streaming service, everything except the equipment. And I was talking to H-Train, the guy who runs the program here, and we were talking about, what would you do if you had the money? What would you do with money? And he goes, I don't know. I would just open it up for more people. Well, yeah, that's true, but this is already there. If you had a wish list, what would you do? And he goes, I don't know. So if he asked me, what would I want if I could? And I said, better equipment. A lot of us don't have the money to start this. I was luckily able to get what I needed to get started, and it's helped me do this. I've already upgraded once to a newer equipment, and now I'm considering buying a second set of equipment so it can be even better. But do I need it? No. Do I want it? Yes. But I would say on average, $300 to $400 will get you all the equipment you need to do a podcast by yourself. You don't need that much. You just need one camera, one mic, whatever. If you got people on, programs you're going to pay for, have people call in, whatever the case may be. And as we progress here through the podcast, what you're going to see is I've been laying the groundwork the foundation work for why we do certain things. Now, as we get into the end of September, early October, it is time to start applying for FAFSA, which is financial aid and different scholarships. And there's a lot of things you start looking at right now. I'm going to have people coming in, maybe come into the studio, maybe come in like my nieces or my son does, virtually, come in, talk on their phone, maybe on the phone call. We'll take phone calls. There's all this costs money, and a lot of us pay for it out of our pocket. But the streaming service you're seeing right now is funded through MB Radio, and donate to them, please. It's very important to do that. We want to keep this going. Also, when I was saying about the food bank, that's one place that almost every penny goes to helping the needy. Another program that I love so much, everyone talks about Girl Scouts selling cookies and Boy Scouts selling popcorn and stuff like that. Everyone's always asking for money. If you're looking to do a fundraiser at school, there's so many different things you can do. But nobody, the thing is, we get bombarded by people asking for money everywhere we go. And, I know not everyone likes to talk about this subject, but I'll talk about it. Sometimes it's always, give me money, give me money, give me money. You may not need the help. But you may be in a spot where you're fortunate enough to help others. And I hope you can. Because even though you don't need the help, you might one day need it. And I'll give you an example of that. In my situation, I had my wife passed away from cancer. She was sick for about 2 years, and I spent all my savings and everything I had getting her treatments and whatever I could. We had insurance, but deductibles were like between $3,000 and $5,000, and medications here and there and other things we needed for her. She wasn't able to work anymore, so I lost that income. So I had to supplement her income. After she passed away, her funeral itself cost probably about $7,500, and that was a bare minimum for the funeral. She was buried at Fort Bliss, so we saved some money on the plot there. But I'm telling you, $10,000, $15,000 is what it costs. And after she passed away, I just didn't want to do counseling anymore. Got laid off, and I was trying to find something to do. And I lost the house, lost my car, all that happened to me. And I needed the assistance. I needed the help. And I did whatever I could to make ends meet. Luckily, I'm at a point now where I can give back, and I'm doing more. My son's graduated. He's taking care of himself at college. I only worry about myself, and I'm doing things. And that's one reason I started this podcast, is so I can go out there and help others learn what's needed, what they can do to change their lives, how to help other kids in their lives and everything. But it's so important because you have to give back, but you never know when you're going to need it. So don't look down on those people that need the help. All right. And one of the things we were talking about earlier also is the veteran suicides. 22 veterans a day are lost to suicide because of all the things they've been involved with in their whole life. Some of the stuff they've seen in combat, it's not easy. Not everybody can handle that. It takes help. It takes courage to get the help. And it's important to understand that, because having someone to talk to and just share that with, and hasn't that been my theme the whole time, is have someone to talk to, have someone to share information with, because you never know when you're going to need it. So be aware of that. And we can definitely talk about that when we come back from break.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
When I needed help, I wasn't shamed. I was able to get the mental health treatment that I needed. I felt like that really helped me just get out of my own way and become a successful person, become a happy person. Hi, my name is Jess. I was in the Army from 2012 to 2016, and I was a 74 Delta. I'm an immigrant. I felt really honored to be so blessed with certain opportunities and being to live in this country. I wanted to give back. My time in the Army was pretty cool. I just wanted to make sure that I could show up, pull my weight, and be a part of the team. I was sexually assaulted when I was in the Army the first year, and that really shook me up because it was from someone else that was in the Army. We wear the same uniform, we're supposed to be on the same team, we're supposed to have each other's back. Like, how could you do that to me? So prior to seeking mental health treatment, I was drinking a lot. Reckless behavior or just running from those thoughts, trying to keep myself busy, and I just wouldn't slow down. I couldn't slow down. After service, before I got mental health help, I was just tired. I felt like I could finally breathe, but I also felt like I didn't have enough energy to even take care of myself. I would drink a lot. I would, smoke. I would just do reckless things, and just each of my vices led me down to a dead end. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was reminded that I am entitled to those benefits. I'm not a burden. And, that's what the VA is there for. I put my pride aside and I made an appointment, and I was just honest and open and willing. And I wanted to have the tools to be able to take care of myself if I am having a bad day. The mental health treatment that has worked for me has been intensive therapy, so talk therapy. I've done cognitive behavioral therapy. And with that, it's just working through my thoughts and my actions and why I think the way that I do, why I do the things that I do, taking that time to slow down and really question why I'm doing what I'm doing has really eased all that reckless behavior or the destructive behavior, because I can't get better and I can't move forward if I'm having my own internal war with myself. The mental health diagnosis that I received was PTSD, depression, anxiety. I would absolutely recommend all women veterans to check out the Women's Clinic. It also helps them learn more about us. There's not very many women veterans that use the VA, so the more that we do the surveys, the more that we go into those clinics, the more they can kind of learn about our demographic and improve treatment for us. I had to learn that not everyone is against me and not everyone's going to hurt me. It means a lot to have friends that can support me through this journey, because I know how much it took for me to even get here, and they can see that. I have people that are cheering me on and also there for me during those really hard times too. When I can show up honestly, that connection strengthens and it builds that deeper bond, and I know that they're truly there for me, that they truly love me. It's been great being able to show up better, and I know that they can tell the difference too. I love going on hot girl walks. I love putting on music and walking around my neighborhood. I love playing with my dog. I really love animals, so I'll volunteer. Just try anything and everything. The VA is there. You don't know what you don't know, and they're there to help you. You're worth that effort. The advice I have for women veterans is the sisterhood that you didn't have while in service, you can find that as a veteran. We're all cheering everybody on. Everybody has a seat at the table, and we're stronger together than we are apart.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
And again, we want to remember, you guys, you're not alone. You need help, call 98 or dial 988 and then press 1, and you'll be able to talk to someone 24/7, 365. They're available. And I got to tell you, from someone who's been on both sides of the desk as a counselor and as a client, it's very interesting, because as a counselor, you think, hey, I can handle anything, right? I'm trained to do this. I help other people, but we can't help ourselves. And asking for help is probably the hardest thing you've ever had to do. Like I mentioned earlier, Who Moved My Cheese. The story's about two little mice, two little men in a maze. They go and they eat their cheese, and one day their cheese is gone. And they have to go out into the maze and look for it. Excuse me. They have to go out into the maze and look for it. And it's interesting because they have 4 different reactions to the changes. But one of them, was scared to go out in the hallway, go into the maze, and find what he needed. And again, I've shared the story. One of the phrases that impacted me so much more was, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And that really was what got me started in a lot of things I am doing now. Because what would you do if you weren't afraid? Imagine if you're a veteran who needs help and you're scared to go out there. How are you going to start it? What are you going to do to get the help? You know, going into that veteran hospital the first time is probably one of the hardest things anyone will ever have to do. And it's one of those things that I always ask. What are you trying to do that you can to go get help? What are you trying to do to change your situation? What are you doing different? You know, and one of the favorite things, like I said, was what would you do if you weren't afraid was one of those phrases that had a lot of impact on me as an adult, because it made me question everything. And some of the other handwriting on the wall, if I remember correctly, was change happens. Nothing is ever going to stay the same. So no matter how bad your situation is, it can get worse or it can get better. Okay. And I always tell people, I'm an optimistic pessimist. I look forward to things getting worse. You know, things can always change. So change happens whether you want it to or not. Are you going to be able to plan ahead and anticipate the change maybe? Can you monitor the change as it's happening? How fast can you adapt to the change? These are all concepts that are talked about in the book, the Who Moved My Cheese book. But when you think about it, change happens. You can't stop it. You have to change. And at some point, you have to do something different. And if you don't do anything different, nothing's going to change. Okay. So go and get the help. Walk into the VA. If you don't want to, you can call 1-800-827-1000 and you can get the help there. They will tell you where to go, what to do, when to get help, all of that stuff. Because, like I said, the first step is taking that first step to call and getting the help you need. It's so important. It is so important to do that. You may not want to. It's probably be the hardest thing you've ever had to do, but I'll tell you what, you won't regret it. You will get the help you need and you'll be able to do what you need. And eventually, hopefully, you get the help you need and you'll be able to move on and just do something better, you know. Some other things that they talked about in Who Moved My Cheese, you know, is the sooner you let go of your old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese. You know, everybody wants to say, but that's not how it used to be. It's not how it used to be. But guess what? It's not like it used to be, and you have to change or you're going to be stuck back there. You need to evolve with your cheese. All right. Imagining your new cheese helps you find it is something else that I found pretty interesting, because the sooner you let go of the old cheese and you find new cheese, you also have to imagine what new cheeses would be. Ask yourself right now, you know, like I said, what would you do if you weren't afraid, right? Where do you see yourself in a few years? What do you see changing that you want to change? You know, do you want to get a new house? Do you want a new car? Do you want a family? You know, it's never too late to start a family. Obviously, you know, when you're like my age, starting a family is not the best idea. But what if I end up dating someone who's 25 years old, which is not going to happen, but you get my point. And they want to start a family with me. You know, we can do that. What do you want in this world? What do you want to make happen? That is probably the hardest question you can ask yourself. What do you want to see yourself doing in a few years? You know, in job interviews, I'll ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And one of the strangest questions I ever heard about that was, I was in an interview with my boss and we were interviewing somebody and they said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the person replied, in your position. And my boss was like, what are you talking about? In my position? You think I want to be gone in 5 years? She says, I don't know, but I see myself in your position. Like, I don't know. That was a little too extreme for me. But that's great that you have ambition and you want to see that happen. But what's your plan to get there? When you talk about plans, you have three things you need. They need to be observable, measurable, and realistic. First thing, the plan has to be realistic. We talked about this one time. We talked about going to the moon. Is that a realistic plan? Can you go to the moon? Yes. Can I go to the moon? Now, unless I'm a millionaire or a billionaire that can take my own rocket up to the moon, I'm already too old to fly up as an astronaut, right? I might be able to go to space on Blue Origin or whatever they're called now. Even though it's realistic and it can happen, doesn't mean it will. Is it measurable? Obviously, if I land on the moon, it's measurable and observable. You can see me on the moon. But doing those steps, you have to make sure it's realistic, observable, and measurable. So one of the things that I want to do is I wanted to be debt-free by the end of 2030. Let me see, what's 7 years from now? 32. Not only debt-free, but I want to have my new car and I want to have a new house paid off in 7 years. I can do it. I have a plan. If everything goes the way I want it to, great. If it doesn't, I have a plan for that too. Remember, it's not necessary to always stick to your plan because you have to adapt to change, but it's always important to have a plan. Know where you're going, know why you're doing things the way you're doing it, so that when you go out there, you can do it. I have a friend of mine who wants to start a business. And I was like, here's the things you have to look at. One of the things you have to look at is how much money am I going to make? Okay, well, let's pretend I make so much money per session, 8 people a day, blah, blah, blah. I make so much money a month. But you can't count on that. People cancel, people reschedule. Holidays hit, weather hits. You can only maybe count 50% of it to be safe, 60%. And that's, if you make 100%, 40% profit. If not, you're just barely eking by. So, you got to prepare for all situations. You can't just say everything's going to be perfect and peachy keen and, it's going to go great. You want to be positive, but you also got to be realistic. Realistic is so important. Being realistic is one of the things that we have to keep in mind because you never know what's going to happen down the road. When I was a counselor, I was going to work on my PhD and I had started it and everything, and I just never followed through with it. And I was working at a program that offered free counseling for kids. At some point I decided I'm not going to get my certification, I should say my degree, become a doctor. I'm going to just be an amazing counselor. And I'm going to help all these kids that normally would not get the help. And for 16 years, I dedicated my life to that. I helped the kids who were in need through various situations. One of my specialties was dealing with trauma. That's why one of the things, Veterans Hotline, Veteran Suicide is one of my pet projects, because I really do believe in it. Getting help does help. I can tell you right now, aside from my own personal life, but a lot of people have come through shelters, through offices, counseling offices, and changed their lives. Does it always work? No, nothing's 100%. But I can tell you right now, a lot of the people that I saw did change. They changed for the better, and the situation got better. I can tell you personally, I've been in counseling on and off since 91. So, that's a long time to be in counseling, but I'm not in it every day. But whenever I've had a hard time, I go to counsel and they give me the help that I need. When my wife got sick and she had cancer, I told her, you need to go to counseling. She says, why? I said, you need to have someone to talk to. She says, I have my friends, I have you. I said, no, you need someone who's not part of the problem or part of the situation or part of the solution to give you the advice you need. You need to go to some outside party. And that's what counselors do. They give you their assistance. And I'll tell you the 2 of my quickest stories that I love to tell. I had a kid come in to see me, and the father was angry because he was gay. And whether you believe, whether it's a choice or if it comes naturally, that's not the debate here, okay? But the kid comes up to me and goes, I'm gay. My dad won't accept it. And I said, okay. I believe that, some people choose, some people, it just happens. It is what it is. In this case, I believe the kid just felt gay, and, could it change later? Of course. Could it stay the same? Of course. But the father says, how come he just can't be straight? And I turned to the father and I said, well, how come he can't be gay? And the father goes, because I'm not gay. I said, and he's not straight. And the father hit that moment of realization. He's like, wow, that's so true. And it hit him. And he realized that he was trying to improve things with his daughter or his son, Another one, this one's, I had a kid who had a really bad attitude. She was just going all out, angry, everything going on. And they brought her to counseling. And, she had problems with her mom, problems with her dad, whatever. And like a lot of kids do. And I remember when I sat down with her, I said, tell me, why are you so angry? What makes you so angry? And she said, and a little preface here, in the Hispanic and Mexican cultures, a quinceañera at 15 years old is the biggest party a girl is. It's the transition from a young girl to a young woman. And it's a rite of passage for a lot of Mexican girls. And they plan it a year or two in advance. Sometimes, like they'll say, it's as much as a car. Would you want a car or do you want a party? It's literally that kind of money we're talking about. In some cases, $10,000, 15, easy. And so this girl, she says, a week before my quince, and I remember they were planning this for 2 years. They already had all the table centerpieces made. They had everything prepared and everything. And a week before the quince, her uncle got arrested for DUI. And her mom used all the final money that we all paid for the food and a few other things, the limo, whatever the case was, and paid to get her uncle out of jail. And they canceled her quince. And that girl was just really, really angry. And when the kid told me this, I looked at her and I said, you should be angry. You should be angry. I said, but not the way you're behaving. That's not okay. The things you're doing, acting out, things you're doing because you're not feeling good is not healthy. So let's talk about some of the ways to deal with that anger. It's okay to be angry. Someone was like, don't be angry. He needed the help. No. You have a right to be angry. It's just how you deal with that anger is the most important thing, you guys. So I can tell you, and there's hundreds of kids I've helped. As a teacher, I've helped people find their jobs and everything. I bumped into a guy probably 2 months ago, and he goes, hey, you teach psychology, right? I'm like, yeah, that's me. He goes, I was one of your students. He says, oh, right on. I said, I hope you remember something I taught you. And he goes, well, I hope so too, because I'm a sports psychologist because of you. I was like, wow, that's cool that I help somebody. So, counseling does help, you guys. It doesn't always help, but it does help. And that's the message I wanted to do today. Veteran Suicide Month, veteran awareness, get the help, cross the line, go into the VA, cross that threshold at the door, take that first step, whatever analogy you want to use, but get the help. It's literally just pick up your phone and 3 numbers, 988, and you can get help. Or 911 if it's an emergency situation. If you need someone there right now, okay? You can always get help. Just the hardest thing is understanding you need it and going and getting it. And those are the things that you have to really think about. As a counselor, I never said, I don't need the help. I told myself, oh, I have a lot of things going on in my head. I need to go get some help. And I did. And throughout the years, I've gotten help. And most recently, the last time I went to counseling was probably 2019. So it's been about 6 years since I've been to counseling. That's been pretty good since COVID. Luckily, I was able to keep my job. I was able to advance and do things on my own. And as far as I know, we're doing pretty good right now. So again, no matter how bad things get, it could get worse, but it could also get better. And that's what you need to focus on, that it could get better. Count on your friends, count on your family. If you don't have that, go outside of the network and get family and friends that been through the same thing as you, the veterans. Go to the VA hospital, go to the clinics, get some help. Call 1-800-827-1000. Call 988 for help if you're suicidal. The help is there, but it's up to you to go get the help. Remember that. It's up to you. You cannot just say, I'm not going to do this or I'm going to do it. You have to go get the help. Otherwise, it's not going to be a healthy situation for anybody. So keep that in mind, okay? Volunteer, give help. Like I was talking about today with the food bank, and I was talking about MB radio. You know, donate, help out other veterans, help out other people that need it, because you never know when you might need it. Or imagine if something like COVID hits again. You know, there's always the threat, oh, this strain is coming, whatever. It won't ever be as bad as COVID. Well, it took 100 years since the Spanish flu, but it happened again. You just never know. So you always want to be prepared for all those situations, you guys. Your cheese is going to move at some point in your life. Are you going to move with it, or are you going to resist it? What are you going to do to change it? Are things going to get better or worse? Those are all things you have to think about. All right. But they will not get better if you don't do anything to change your situation. Your cheese is getting old, it's getting moldy, and you need to do something to change that. Okay? Because it sucks when you're having a bad time. I get it. I've been there. But I also can tell you that I've been able to get the help that I needed, and I'm doing better now. You know, I'm doing better. Not everybody gets better, but the majority of us do. And, you know, it can save the 22 that are dying every day. And that's why that song 22, make 22 zero again, so important to me, because you do want to stop that. You do want to prevent losing more people than we should. There's no need for people who served our country, who've done what they did because they love our country of their own free will, joined, and then have from it, get the help, and make sure you go and do what you got to do. All right, you guys, that's it for today. We will be back every Saturday at 12 o'clock Eastern. You can reach us on the web at purehottakes.com, or you can email me at murphman@purehottakes.com. I'd be happy to answer your questions. If you need more information, check out the website. We'll have all the information on the page, also summaries, and look at our social medias. You're gonna see all the stuff that I got going now, that I finally got understanding how this stuff works, thanks to H-Train. And we're gonna do something. So look for it, and see you all next week. Remember, Saturdays, 12 o'clock. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Hot Takes with the Murph Man. Your listenership truly means a lot to both of us. For the latest hot takes and much, much more, be sure to visit purehottakes.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media platforms as Hot Takes with the Murph Man to stay connected and join the conversation. My take is this show is over. Thanks for listening, and I'll have more for you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.